Hello, all you freedom-loving people. While Trump meets with more big tech CEOs, he may pardon the New York mayor, and dismissal of his own hush money trial is still on the table. Okay, let's get into it. SoftBank Group CEO Masayoshi Son visited President Trump at Mar-a-Lago on Monday, and he announced a $100 billion investment in the U.S. over the next 4 years. In a joint statement with President Trump, the billionaire investor promised to create at least 100,000 jobs focused on artificial intelligence and related infrastructure. The funds will be put to use before the end of President Trump's term. He said, "I am truly excited to make this happen. President Trump's victory has energized the business world, and we are proud to support his vision for growth and innovation." During the event, President Trump pressed Son to think even bigger, asking whether the company might double its investment to $200 billion. Son responded with a smile, saying, "I'll try to make it happen. My confidence level with the economy of the United States has tremendously increased with his victory. President Trump is a double-down president. I'm going to have to double down." Masayoshi Son has been a staunch supporter of the potentials of artificial intelligence, and he has pushed to expand SoftBank's investment in the field. He has taken a stake in OpenAI and acquired chip startup Graphcore. In 2016, after President Trump was first elected president, Son made a similar announcement. SoftBank agreed to invest $50 billion in the U.S. with the goal of creating 50,000 jobs. On the same day, TikTok CEO Xiaozhi Chu met with President Trump at Mar-a-Lago. It's unclear what President Trump and Chu discussed, but the consensus is that the divestment order against TikTok should have been one of the focal points of their conversation. The U.S. Congress has passed, and President Joe Biden has signed, a requirement that TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance must divest itself of TikTok by January 19th, 2025, or TikTok will face a U.S.-wide ban. It's unclear whether the Supreme Court will intervene to suspend the TikTok ban. If the Supreme Court doesn't intervene, Apple and Google will have to take TikTok off the App Store or face huge fines. Earlier on Monday, President Trump told a press conference at the Haywood Manor that he has a soft spot for TikTok, and President Trump said he would weigh in on the ban when he takes office next month, but he gave no further details. While meeting with President Trump, TikTok is also trying to make a last-ditch effort to get the U.S. Supreme Court to hold off on the sell or ban divestment order to give the incoming Trump administration time to evaluate the order. Chu is one of a number of tech executives who met with President Trump before his inauguration. Ted Sarandos, the co-CEO of Netflix, will also meet with President Trump on Tuesday night. In the same press conference on Monday at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump said that he would consider pardoning New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Adams was indicted on federal corruption charges in September. The indictment alleged that Adams exchanged favors with Turkey in return for campaign contributions.
Would you consider pardoning Eric Adams?
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I think that he was treated pretty unfairly. Now, I haven't seen the gravity of it all, but it seems, like being upgraded in an airplane many years ago. I know probably everybody here has been upgraded. They see you're all stars, and they say, I want to upgrade that person from NBC. I'm going to upgrade him. And that would mean you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. I don't know. Somehow, I'd have to see it because I don't know the facts. I think he was treated. It's very interesting. When he essentially went against what was happening with the migrants coming in. And, he made some pretty strong statements like, this is not sustainable. I said, you know what, he'll be indicted soon. And I said it not as a prediction, a little bit lightheartedly, but I said it. I said, he's going to be indicted. And a few months later, he got indicted. So, yeah, I would certainly look at it.
Now, Adams has shown a willingness to cooperate with President Trump on addressing the ongoing migration crisis in the U.S. A recent Supreme Court decision is also very favorable to President Trump's upcoming deportation of illegal immigrants. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously on December 10th that federal courts may not review the federal government's decision to revoke an immigration visa. Literally, it may not be easy to understand what it means, but it becomes clear when taken in the context of the case itself. The petitioner, Amina Bouarfa, a U.S. citizen, married non-citizen Ala Al-Hamail, a Palestinian man. They produced 3 children, all of whom are U.S. citizens. Bouarfa filed an immigration petition to classify her husband as an immediate relative after they married, which would make him eligible for adjustment to permanent resident status. In 2015, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services approved the wife's petition, but it moved to revoke its approval 2 years later in 2017. This is because they found that the husband previously attempted to pass off another one of his marriages as legitimate to obtain permanent resident status. The government determined that he engaged in fraud before the current marriage was deemed fraudulent, and his visa, which had been approved, was canceled. Bouarfa disputed the decision the same year, and the Board of Immigration Appeals ruled against her in 2021. In January of 2022, Bouarfa sued in a federal district court in Florida. She requested a review of the board's decision, but the court dismissed the case, finding that it lacked authority to hear it. The wife took the case all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court affirmed the ruling of the 11th Circuit. In the Supreme Court's ruling, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote that the decision to revoke involved a quintessential grant of discretion to DHS that judges are unable to review. The justice wrote that the law provides that the DHS secretary may at any time, for what he deems to be good and sufficient cause, revoke the approval of any visa petition. Despite this, Bouarfa still has options. Nothing prohibits a citizen from filing another petition on behalf of the same relative, the justice wrote, adding that nothing in the law requires the secretary to uphold the sham marriage determination. On Monday, New York State Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan rejected a request made by President Trump and his legal team in July, asking Merchan to overturn the jury's guilty verdict against President Trump in the hush money case. President Trump's attorneys argued that the evidence presented by New York prosecutors in the trial is protected by the U.S. Supreme Court's doctrine of presidential immunity. The challenged evidence includes testimony from President Trump's White House aides, tweets from President Trump posted during his term in office, and other evidence. But Merchan ruled that these act as evidence of the decidedly personal acts of falsifying business records, poses no danger of intrusion of the authority and function of the executive branch. However, while denying this request, Merchan has not yet ruled on President Trump's formal motion to dismiss the case altogether. Earlier this month, President Trump's lawyers formally requested the immediate dismissal of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's charges against President Trump in the hush money case. This is because this case used failed weaponized laws that should never have happened in the first place. Stephen Chung, President Trump's spokesman and incoming White House communications director, said in a statement on Monday that Merchan's ruling directly contravenes U.S. Supreme Court rulings on immunity, as well as other long-standing jurisprudence. A former FBI informant, Alexander Smirnov, pled guilty on Monday to lying in connection with the congressional Republican investigation into the impeachment of President Joe Biden. Smirnov is accused of having lied to FBI investigators that executives at Burisma, a Ukrainian energy company, paid $5 million to President Biden and Hunter Biden around 2015. According to court documents, Smirnov has only been conducting regular business dealings with Burisma since 2017. Prosecutors said Smirnov worked as an informant for more than a decade before filing explosive charges against Joe and Hunter Biden in June of 2020. It's unclear what motivated Smirnov to lie and whether he provided evidence to that effect. According to the charging documents, the FBI field office investigated the allegations and had previously recommended closure of the case in August of 2020. It was concluded that there was no evidence of corruption or bribery by Joe Biden while he was serving as president or vice president. But in September of 2023, Smirnov claimed to FBI investigators that Russians may have had recordings of Hunter Biden because a hotel in the Ukrainian capital where Hunter had stayed had been bugged by and under control of the Russians. Smirnov said that the information was passed on to him by 4 senior Russian officials. But according to the court indictment, Hunter Biden had never traveled to Ukraine at that time. Smirnov was arrested in February of this year, and he has been in jail ever since. He's accused of having lied to FBI investigators, as well as a separate, unrelated charge of tax evasion for concealing millions of dollars in income. But recently, the prosecutor and Smirnov's defense attorney reached a plea deal. Under the agreement, the prosecutor agreed to recommend a sentence of 4 to 6 years in prison for Smirnov. Yesterday, we mentioned that Chrystia Freeland, Canada's finance minister and deputy prime minister, abruptly announced her resignation. She was supposed to present the economic update for the fall to the legislature on Monday. The fall economic statement was released on Monday afternoon. It revealed a $60 billion deficit, which far exceeds Freeland's $40 billion target. In a letter to Trudeau on Monday, she said that the two have been at odds about the best path forward for Canada, and she pointed to the grave challenge posed by President Trump's policy. Freeland believes that the threat of new tariffs on Canadian imports from the incoming Trump administration poses a serious challenge to Canada. In her letter, she said, "Our country is facing a grave challenge. That means keeping our physical powder dry today so we have the reserves we may need for a coming tariff war." She added this means eschewing costly political gimmicks that Canada cannot afford. Among what she called costly political gimmicks were a check for $250 that the government wanted to send to every Canadian who was earning less than $150,000 annually, and a temporary tax break on essential items during the holidays. Freeland's office said that they are economically unwise at a time when the country's deficit is growing. Freeland said the decision came after Trudeau informed her last week that he no longer wanted her as the government's top economic advisor. Freeland suggested that this showed that she had lost the Prime Minister's trust, which was one of the key reasons for her decision to resign. In her resignation letter, she said the only honest and viable path was to leave the cabinet. The move of Freeland stunned the country and raised questions about how much longer Trudeau can stay in his job. Freeland has long been one of Trudeau's closest allies within his Liberal Party. After 9 years in power, the Prime Minister has faced growing calls to resign. His approval rating has plummeted from 63% when he was first elected to 28% in June of this year. Following Freeland's departure, 5 Liberal MPs publicly called for Trudeau to step down. Helena Yatsik, an MP from Ontario, told reporters, "Let's put it this way. Firing the Minister of Finance, who has served you extremely well, is not what I'd call a trustworthy move." Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the opposition Conservative Party of Canada, called for a federal election as soon as possible. He said, "Everything is spiraling out of control. We simply cannot go on like this." Freeland's resignation comes at the very worst time. Freeland said in her resignation letter that Canadians know when we are working for them, and they equally know when we are focused on ourselves. Inevitably, our time as a government will come to an end. But how we deal with the threat our country faces will define us for a generation or perhaps longer. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.